Welcome to our last video for the year. So Christmas is just over a week away, and I thought today we would do a Wintery Woodland scene using watercolours and pen and ink or a fineliner. And the equipment you'll need, there'll be a list after the introduction that you can read through. And just before we start, I thought I'd just give a plug for my calendars, which have recently been produced through my store on Zazzle. And if you haven't seen them already, here's what they look like. So 12 of my artworks, and they've been printed on thick card. This is the larger version of the calendar. You can get smaller ones as well. So there is my Pemberley artwork with the blue background, and I've been really impressed with the quality of printing. The image colours have turned out very true to the originals. Some of them I've obviously added filters and things to change the colours. So there's a photo of my mosaic of the Raspberry Thief. And there's my old books painting, which was recently sold to the owner of the bookshop, Kay Craddock. And just show one more. And here is my watercolour painting of the Offra Nicholas Gardens in the Dandenong Ranges in Melbourne. Yeah, so if you're interested in grabbing one of the calendars, get onto my Zazzle store. There'll be a link in the description box, and you can access that. So I hope you enjoy today's video and the activity that I've got in store for you, and I look forward to talking to you again at the end. Before we start drawing our artwork, I'd like to just demonstrate how to draw a tree with fine liner quickly, like a fir tree or a Christmas tree kind of shape. And what you want to do, if you're not confident at first, to just go ahead and draw the different branches. We're basically working within a triangle shape. Okay, and within that shape, we are then going to, I'll just go over that a bit to make it a bit darker. So within that shape, we come down and it's sort of like this. And the same on the opposite side, kind of. So it's that kind of idea. I'll show you on the back. Just put the triangle there, but this time I'll make it more like what I want it to look like. So it will be Actually, I'll use the pen. That will stand out a bit easier. So there's a branch there, another one sort of coming over here. So we can stick it out a bit, but we're just sort of using those triangle lines as a bit of a guideline. We can start to add in some extra branches here as well. We're not aiming for a great amount of realism. It's more like a book illustration that we're doing. So we don't have to stress about making it precise in all details. So we can get a bit more distance between each layer, and they go spreading out a bit further. But then you'll notice they always dip back in. So you don't have to put the triangle thing there. If you're confident to do without it, that's fine. So something along those lines, roughly. And then underneath it, you can do a tree trunk. Curving out a bit at the bottom, and then you could have some kind of mound or whatever. Maybe little bits of grass poking through here or there, or little bits of plant. Something like that. And then you could also add some little blobs of snow here and there. If you did it with greylead first, then you could make it a bit more refined so that you have some of the blobs of snow sort of raised up a bit rather than having to go below that line. If I go above that line, then it's going to just look a little bit weird. So you can see what I mean by doing greylead first, and then you can sort of work out a bit more where you want to put those bits. Just little bits of snow here and there. And yeah, so you get the idea there. Rub out the greylead. For shading, you can do, imagine the light's coming from over here. Shadow on this side, so I've gone halfway along. Then I go back to this side, come in a little bit, but don't go in as far. And then I can do an even darker bit there. And I could do a bit of shading on some of the branches as well, where the snow is not there. Kind of like pine needles / shading. I could also do a bit of shading underneath, just some diagonal lines. Maybe leave that bit lighter here, so it looks like it's raised up a bit. And you can do more shading around these bits as well. But we can use watercolour as well, so we don't need to feel like we've got to put tons of detail in with the pen for this kind of drawing. Okay, so that's how to basically do tree shape. If you were wanting to do a rock in there, some kind of, okay, so here's a bit of a rock shape, and you can do some diagonal shading places, change the direction a bit. Something like that. You could add dots as well. Just be careful not to bang too hard with the pen. The nib is going to go inside the pen and you won't be able to use it. So that would be a rock. If you're doing a lamppost,
So I'm just showing you how to do the pole. Same sort of technique as before, so come part way across. And then come a bit further in, not as far. Sorry, so not as far in. And then just a little bit. And that will give you that rounded 3D kind of look for the pole. So I think those are the main things that I wanted to show you. I can show you the rest in the actual artwork that I'm going to do. So I'll just get my paper ready for that now. All right, so let's begin the actual artwork. And I don't want mine to be quite as big as this. So I'll just whittle it off a bit. I'm just roughly working it out here. So this is something that you could do on a folded sheet of watercolour paper, so that you can make it into a Christmas card, or you could do it on a half size or even smaller, so that you can stick it onto a different kind of paper or card. I'm just having a border around the edge. And now we will start sketching in the basic details. And it might be a good idea, if you're doing the lamppost, to pop that in before you start the other things. I'm just going to use my set square again so I can get the middle of the lamppost straight. Doesn't really matter if it's a bit wonky. It could add character. So I think I'll put the lamppost about here, so it's not right in the middle. Just put a line up there. And I'll use the ruler for the rest of it. With lampposts, usually they tend to be tapering up like a candle, so a bit thinner towards the top, so that line there will be in the middle, but then I'm going to have to make it smaller at the top and a bit wider at the bottom. So I'm just working out how wide I'll make it. So I might make it 0.5 on either side at the bottom, and maybe 0.3 on either side at the top. And then just join those. So there's the start of my lamppost. If I decide that I need to bring part of it down a bit more, I can just rub out a bit at the top and a bit more down below. So I might do that. I'm a bit tired today. It's been a busy few weeks. So forgive me if I'm not talking quite as coherently as I should. And it's been a while since I've done a video, so I really wanted to try and get one done despite the tiredness. Right, so we don't have to rule everything up precisely and neatly, because we can do the more sketchy, we'll take the more sketchy approach. So you can look up images of lampposts, but don't feel like you've got to slavishly copy them. So unless you get the main bits looking good, then you can add your own flair to things, add your own designs. You could even have vines and things wrapped around the lamppost, or other decorative bits on there. Some of it will disappear down into the snow. Curve that around slightly. And this is not the lantern bit. This is just the base for it. Need to sharpen my pencil. So just a slight change of the curve. So at the bottom, it's going like a smile. At the top, it's more like a sad face, a sad mouth. Okay, so now I can pop in the lantern bit. Adding that slight curve at the top makes it look like you're sort of looking up, as though it's taller than if it was flat. If it was flat, then your eyes would be level with that bit, but as the curve goes up like that, you're actually down lower looking up at it. So it's a little trick that you can do. Okay, so there's the top of it, and I'm actually going to raise up the top a bit. Can't be bothered rubbing out the whole lamppost because I just like a bit more space there. So I just need, I'm imagining this will go in a frame, so I just need enough at the top to allow it to be taped into the frame. Right, yeah, I'm happy with that. And now I will add in a bit of a mound of snow there. Maybe another one sort of coming over here. And then I can sketch in a couple more lines. Something like that. Pop in the metal straps that hold the glass in place. And pop in the little bar things that some of them have that stick out. Alright, so there's the lamppost. And now I'm going to add in tree. And I might make this tree disappear above. I'd like that to look even taller. So just sketching in some of the branches loosely, overlapping them a bit here and there. You could do smaller trees so that you can see the whole shape. They don't have to be massive. Just keep in mind that the further away things get, the smaller they will look, or the smaller you'll draw them. So if I wanted a tree in the distance, it'd be more like this size. If I saw a tree in front of this and it was small, I would assume that it's just quite a small tree, like a baby tree. And I'll pop in a nice tree trunk here. Trying to match it up basically with the top there. I'm going darker than I need to. I'm pressing harder, so just so that the camera can pick it up for you, pick up all the details. Just put a few lines there. Okay, so there's one of my trees, and I just make that a little bit wider in the bottom. Okay, so one tree in place. Now, what I was talking about before was if I want to add blobs of snow, then I can just rub out a little bit of the branch and then raise it up a little bit further. So I'm imagining there's been a light snow, but it's not been so heavy that it's covering everything. And so remember, we're not aiming for something that's very realistic, like a photo or anything, more like a book illustration. Blobs of different sizes here and there. Don't have to overdo it. Just it really depends on how much time you've got to do it and how many blobs of snow you can be bothered doing. So, just more over here. That will do for that one. And let me have a think. I'd like to have sort of a bit of a horizon line kind of thing there. And then put another tree over here. Some snow. Should do some of them a bit bigger, I think, just to add a bit of variety. Otherwise it starts to look too much like a pattern, a bit too unnatural. Trunk over here, line there, and I'm going to put some hills here and here, and then I'm going to put the edge of More trees. To show that it's a forest. So that one will be the front of them all. Bit of a tree trunk. And just a few branches here and there. Don't have to be as detailed, because the further away things get, the less detail you see. But I can put little bits of snow here and there as well. And I'll put some snow on the mountains. Or hills, whatever they are. Okay, and I might add in a sun or a moon. Just put it maybe there and see how that looks. Yep, I'm happy with that. And there. I don't think I'll bother putting any rocks in this one, but I would like to put some little footprints. Or could they be hoof prints? Looks a bit too much in a straight line for me. I'd like it to meander a bit more. I might just still change the direction of that, otherwise it's whatever it was walking into a tree. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Okay. I might just add another mound of snow in there. So once you think you're done, just have a look and just see if you feel like you need to adjust anything a bit. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. Okay, so now for the pen work, just the fun part. And it doesn't really matter where you start. For the lampposts, you could rule things up again, or you can just go freehand so the whole thing has a bit more of a freehand kind of feel. I'm using a 0.5, where is it? So 0.5 uni pin fineliner. So it's water and fade proof pigment ink. You could use a thinner one. I find the thicker ones tend to give more of an illustrative appearance. They're great for sketching. If you're doing a really fine artwork where you want tons of detail, then the 0.1 is great for that. So I don't feel like everything in this has to be super neat. I want it to have that sort of sketchy feel about it. So I'm just going to do all the outlining, and then I'll join you again once that's done to talk about how to do the shading a bit more. So all the outlines are done now, almost. And now I can start to add in some shading. So we talked about that before, so I'll just remind you, here is our little practice go. You don't have to do the smiley face on the sun. I'm a bit annoyed because I made it just a little bit too dark there, but I'll work that into the artwork somehow. I might do a nighttime scene, and that way it will look a bit more suitable, but that's fine. Sometimes you just got to problem solve. Okay, so you could do some extra lines on the tree trunks just to make it look a bit more like bark. And then sort of figure out, okay, there's the light source in here. So I'm going to do the shadows more on this side. And I can put a bit of shadow just under where the branches are as well. So that's one tree trunk done. This time I'll put the shadow on the opposite side. And I did forget to do some other bark bits, the texture of bark, so I'll pop that in there as well. It's a little, we don't want to overdo it for this. And more diagonals, but not as far in. And a bit further back still on the diagonal. And there you can see that's looking more 3D now, and now I'll just pop in a bit of shading under where the branch is. So there's that. Maybe a tad more over this side. Okay, we've got another tree trunk here. I won't do too much on that one. And a lamppost. curve some lines around here. Sort of thinking about where is the light going to be hitting it. So I've got light coming from above and from over here. We don't need to stress too much about it. So I might do the shadow here on this side a bit more. If you were working from a photo, then it would all be there for you to work from or to copy. We'll just do the best we can with what we can imagine. Just changing the angle slightly on the very edge of my pen strokes so I can get a nice neat edge there. Some dark edge. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'll do the shading towards the bottom of these round bubbly bits. And towards the bottom there. Sometimes there's not enough room to do a whole, like the different layers of shading. So you've just got to do the best you can there. Okay, that's done. I'll just set a little bit more down here. And I can shade these in. You could go solid black if you want to. Or you can leave a little bit of texture. A little bit of light showing through. And then fairly dark up here, but I might make it just slightly lighter as it gets towards that side. And same over here. Okay, so there's the lamppost done. Except I'm going to do some of the lines. So when you're doing panes of glass, you would have seen this, I'm sure, in some comic books or cartoons. I'll just do those little lines that sort of you can use for glass or other smooth surfaces. Yeah. Now, I will I'll just do a little bit of shading in the footprints. I'm going to paint this as well, so I don't need to stress too much about shading them in, but just a little. And now I can do some shading in between the branches or on the branches. Some of it's not so much shading, it's just adding texture like pine needles. But in some places I can do shading where it's going to be more shadowy, particularly underneath the branches. So where that branch is overlapping the one underneath, I can put in more shading under there, just to give a bit more of a 3D look. So I can then go over it again. I can do cross-hatching if I like, changing the direction of the lines a bit. Yeah. So we don't have to go overboard with all the pine needle textures and lines and things. Just want to give a basic impression of it. And maybe a bit more shading in some places. You could, if you prefer, just leave it like this and then use green paint, so you don't feel like you've got to do lots of shading. Okay, now I'll just add in some darker bits here and there. Okay, just little bits of shading here and there in the background. We want the trees in the distance to look a bit lighter, so we don't want to overdo it. So there's that. And I'm not going to do any shading on the mountains, I don't think. The good thing is if I decide to add any more shading in, or texture, any more details, I can do it with pen after the watercolour. Often in the past I have done the watercolour first and then the pen work over the top. Different artists and illustrators will do things in a different way and with a different order, but you want to make sure that you've got a water and fade proof pigment ink pen. Give it time to dry before you do the watercolour. I'm not sure exactly how long the best amount of time is to wait. Maybe half an hour or so might be good, even an hour, and then come back to it. Then there's much less chance that some of it's going to bleed and spread if you do the painting after you've done the pen work. If you've done the watercolour first after you've done the greylead, then just wait until the watercolour is completely dry. No chance of it being moist, and then the pen will just go over the top. But once again, try to use the water and fade proof one as well. for any work that you do. The ones that aren't as expensive, the ones that aren't water and fade proof, they're fine for just doing random sketches in your sketchbook and so on. But if you're wanting to do something that is going to last, then you want to make sure you've got a better pen for that. I'll just add in a tiny bit more there. All right, so that's the pen work. I'll now just erase the pencil work, and then the next step will be to add some basic watercolors onto here. Well, we're ready to paint now. I've got the watercolor paints, just a simple student selection here, and got my water jars ready, got the pipette, got a nice ceramic palette. The plastic ones are fine, but I really love these ceramic ones. I just got them online, not too expensive, and the thing is you can stick them in the dishwasher. So nice and easy clean, and they feel really nice to use. And I am just going to tape down my picture onto the table. I won't leave the tape on long, so it's not going to harm the old table surface. So I haven't done any watercolor lessons from memory for YouTube yet, and something that I intend to do more of in the future. I can just give you a little bit of a rundown as we go along. So with watercolor, so we're using thick paper. This is hot pressed paper, so it's nice and smooth, which is good for drawing on as well. Cold pressed will be more rough, a bit more bumpy. So if you like texture, that's fine, but I prefer to work on a smooth paper for my artworks. And I believe it's 300 GSM. I forget what GSM stands for, but anyway, it's to do with the weight of the paper. So you want quite a heavy paper. I could get away with probably not taping it down being such a heavy paper, but it may still warp a little bit. So it's safer to tape it down. Usually I tape paper onto an MDF board or something. But it gets a bit cumbersome trying to fit all that on my desk at the moment. I'm not going to go right up to the edges either. I used to do that, so that the tape would come right up to the edges and the paper would sort of end here. But then I realised that when people are framing the artworks, it's better if they have more paper surrounding the image. So this is actually just framers tape that I find isn't as sticky as some tapes. I don't want it to be a permanent thing, and it's fairly easy to pull off afterwards. So the idea is that we'll paint and then let it dry, and because it's taped down flat, even though it will sort of buckle up a bit as we're painting, as the paper gets wet, as it dries it will go flat again, whereas if you don't put the tape on, it's going to probably be slightly warped in places. Okay, so that's the taping done. Sip of coffee. Organic decaf with a splash of almond milk. Alright, now I'm going to, well, the main colour I'm going to use for this artwork, other than green in the trees, will be blue. In this set I've got Prussian blue. It looks quite similar to black in the tube, but it will get lighter once we add water, and I like to squeeze out a ladybug sized dot of paint generally. So when I'm working with my students, our unit of measurement is ladybugs, because most people know roughly how big a ladybug is. All right, now if you hear that whirring noise in the background, that will be one of my neighbours who believes that he needs to rev his car, warm it up for at least 15 minutes every time he's about to go off and do something. It's not exactly what I'd call a classic car either, so it's like, you might just want to go and get a new car if you can manage it. Anyway, we shall put up with it if it happens more. Now, the more water that you add to watercolour paint, the lighter it's going to get. So we don't need to add white. Often my students at school would be using up the white tube of paint the most, thinking to make the blue a light blue, you've got to add white, but with watercolour, you just add water to make it lighter. If you're wanting to make a more pastel-y, creamy version of the colour, then you could add white to it. All right, let me just grab a suitable brush. I want to go fairly dark to start with, because I am going to do the sky, and I'm going to make it a nighttime scene, or a kind of nighttime, because I messed up that little bit a bit, made it too thick. Not that it really matters, but I'd like to make it a bit darker around there so it doesn't stand out too much. Just to talk about brushes quickly, these are Taklon brushes, and so Taklon, and this is a synthetic brush, so the hairs are synthetic, and they're nice and soft, so they're called soft bristle brushes, as opposed to hard bristle brushes that you would use for doing oil paints and maybe acrylic paints. So we just want something soft. The more bristles we have, the better, because it's going to hold the water and the paint in place more. Whereas if you're using the harder bristle brushes that are often made from hog hair, there's not as many bristles. There's more gaps, and so the paint would come out a lot quicker. So these are better. So if you see short-handled ones and they feel soft, then you know that they'll work okay. This one's square-ended or flat-ended one. This is a round-ended or a pointy brush. These ones are great for doing large areas. If you're doing bricks or something, obviously you need a smaller one if you're doing something this size. Or you just want to do a nice even strip, then that's good for that. Generally, the brushes I use most of all are the soft pointed ones, different sizes. Sometimes the numbers are different for different companies, so that won't always be a good indication if you're using different companies' brushes that you've always got the same size. But anyway, so I think I'm going to use, I'll use this one. And I'm just going to stir it around, see what I've come up with. I might put some of that, I'll use the brush just to transfer it there. You could use a pipette if you want to, or you could just add a bit more paint over that side. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is to make a lighter blue. I might start with light and then go darker. And I'll just find Mr. Pipette and add more water to that one. And I'll just grab my scrap of paper that I was doing the test stuff on earlier. Oh, something in the back. And I'm just going to test out my new blue. Yep, I'm happy with that. So it's not very dark, but I'm just going to put that in the background now. I rubbed off those lines that showed where the edge was. I could have left them if I wanted to. Doesn't matter if I go over a little bit. But I do want to be careful as I'm going around the edges of the tree branches and around the edge of the mountain. So remember, I have left this to dry. It's actually been a few days, I think, or at least 2 days since I recorded the last bit of this video where I was doing the pen work. So the pen work's had lots of time to dry, so I shouldn't get any smudging happening there. So I'm just painting around there.
I'm just wanting the blue to be fairly similar. I'm not needing many variations yet. If I wanted to do a ethereal, misty kind of effect, then I would put just clean water down with the brush, clean brush first, and then put some colour over the top, and you find that it sort of spreads out magically, which is fun. Okay, and there's a bit more over on this side here. Now, you don't have to add paint or colour. You might just want to leave it black and white. You could decide to use colour pencils, perhaps, or even watercolour pencils to add some colour with, or some inks or something. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do with that at the moment. Now, while that is still wet, I'm going to get my darker blue. So you can see it's a bit darker. And now I'm just playing around here. I don't exactly know what I intend to do, but I do want it to go darker around the moon. So, but I can leave some lighter bits here and there if I want some little bits of cloud that are appearing in places. Some wispy clouds. Don't stress if you go over the lines a little bit. It can just add to the effect of things, as you often see in book illustrations and watercolour paintings. Okay, now I will take some of this over here, just a little bit. But then I want to add a bit more of the Prussian blue. You could use any blue for this really that you've got in your set. But the Prussian blue does give it a lovely blue. Once I can find it, black, there it went. Alright, so I'm going to add maybe half a ladybug in that bit. Sip of coffee. Okay, so I am wanting to go darker now. And then I'll probably add some black in there as well. Maybe. Alright, so you can see there's a big step up there. I could actually add a bit more water if I want to, but I'm wanting it to be fairly dark, so I can always put a bit more water on top of this if I don't like it. But I think I'm actually happy with that. That's nice. What I could have done before I did the pen work, possibly after, but I don't think it'll work as well after. Whoops. See if I can get rid of a little bit of that. Maybe not. That's all right. Rustic charm. Okay. I could have used a bit of masking fluid, which is like liquid rubber. It's kind of like latex, liquid latex or something. So if you wanted to have snowflakes or stars, you could dab little dots of the masking fluid on first. After you've done the greylead, and then do the masking fluid on, then you can do the pen work. If I was wanting snowflakes covering the whole thing, and I did the pen work first, if I wanted snowflakes covering the lampposts and so on, once I paint over it with other colours and take the masking fluid off to reveal the paper, I would see the edge of it. So if you had a circle, you'd have half of it over here, half here. It just wouldn't look right. So that's what makes me think it would be better to do that beforehand, before you do the pen work.
And then the idea is that you paint your colours over the top of the masking fluid once it's dry. When it's dry, you then get an eraser or you use your finger, rub it off, and it reveals what was underneath, whether it's been painted or whether it's just the blank paper. Now, I will add a bit of blue on the moon anyway, so we won't stress about that. Probably I could be using a smaller brush here, but that's okay. We'll live dangerously. I'm not wanting it to look creepy, like a Halloween kind of thing or anything. I'm not into that. But there is the beauty of a moonlit sky. It's sort of, just that's that real beautiful, special ambience, which I'd like to recreate a bit if I can. I wonder what John Constable would say about my clouds. He was known for his studies of clouds. I think I probably would have got on quite well with John Constable back in the day. We could have both commiserated at how few paintings we've sold. Although I have sold 2 in the past week, so I'm doing okay. Okay. Making things a little bit more wispy here and there. All right, that's okay. Now I'll go back to the original blue, so I can add a bit of that onto the moon. I could go yellow, but because I've got blue in there already, I think I'm just going to do a light blue. And just rub it back and forward a bit on the edge. See if I can lighten those blobby bits, or I'll just add some, make it look a bit darker around those bits, make it look a bit 3D perhaps. Put some craters in there. All right, something like that. And I might add some black on there soon, we'll see. Now, while I've got the blue, the light blue going, I'm now going to put some in the snow, because often shadows in snow look blue. Some people just assume that a shadow will always be black or grey, but shadows can be coloured. It can depend on the surface of what's underneath, it can depend on the quality of light, or the colour of the light, the time of day. And with snow, often the shadows do look bluish, which is quite beautiful. And I want to create a bit of a 3D kind of look to add depth. And so if I put some of the blue, just the pale blue to start with, at the bottom here, try and work quickly, then hopefully I can create a bit of the illusion of depth in there. Alright, so I'll just do those ones while they're still wet, otherwise it won't blend as much. Okay, I think the car is finally ready to go. Alright, so if I put, so see, there's just a little bit darker there. So I'm happy with that. If I didn't do it while the lighter blue was still wet, then it wouldn't sort of bleed together or blend together as much. What I can do, if I don't want that little, there's still a bit of a distinction there, so what I can do is wet my brush again, just with water, and I can just go over the middle of that and see how that sort of smoothed that one out. My water jar that's getting coloured looks very pretty with the pale blue. Alright, so happy with that. Now I can also push upwards the blue that's already on there. So that's the nice thing about watercolour on paper, that you can move it about a bit even once it's down on the page. Okay, so happy with that. Maybe I've done too much, I don't know, we'll see. You can see that there's a difference between sitting down to do an artwork when you're totally engrossed in it and don't have a time restraint. Take your time and plan things out, but when you've got a time limit and lots of other things to do aside from just this, then yeah, we sort of have to make quick decisions, and it might not turn out quite as or as close to what we'd like it to as it could. Okay, so I might bring this one down a bit lower this time. There, over the footprints. Or could they be hoof prints? There. I'll grab a bit of clean water while I'm at it, while it's still wet, and push that up a bit more. Probably should have done that with the last one. Okay, that's good. Now grab a bit more of the slightly darker one while it's still wet. And it should blend or bleed together a bit more. Okay, that's looking nice. And now I've got these bits. So this bit's quite fun. I like rendering, like doing texture and shading, and I love, yeah, once you can apply the paint as well. That's really cool. Put that in there. I'm not really working from a photo or anything, so I'm just guessing where the best place to put it all is. I definitely went over into the border then, but that's okay because the frame will cut that off. Okay, that's nice. And now down the bottom. Push it up a bit while it's still wet. Lovely. And just a bit of darker stuff across the bottom there while the other layer is still wet. Okay, so that's nice. And I can also put a bit of blue up the back. Under here. Now, there are blobs of snow on the trees, so I can do a similar kind of thing with the blobs of snow. I don't want to do too much on there. Trying to keep it more towards the bottom and away from where the moon is shining, but then we've also got the lamp, so it's a bit tricky, but anyway. bits of blue on trees in the background. I could use a smaller brush once again. Thankfully it's got a pointy tip so I can be more careful and just use the tip there. There are bits of snow on the tops, so I'll put blue in places. Okay, so that's that. And I will put some on there. Maybe I'll make a bit more of a shadow on the side away from the moon. Okay, so that's nice. Using the word nice and lovely a lot. Blue down the bottom. I'm going to put some purple in there as well. Do keep in mind that things get lighter or look lighter the further away they are. And things can often look more bluish the further away they are. Alright, so there's that. And now I'll get some of this. Probably should have added this on a bit sooner. Places, but I think that's working all right still. Just to give a bit more of that 3D effect. Looks nice and cool and refreshing. Especially for us Australians that get to usually have a hot Christmas. We'll see if that happens this year. So this year's weather has been very annoyingly cold. And it's been great to have rain, but we haven't really had those consistent sunny hot days either. Which is very unusual for us. Little bits of blue, maybe I'll use the small brush now. Bits of blue in the background. I could even go smaller, but that's all right. Okay. Now I'm going to put a bit of darker blue again. Just add it in there in the corner. Under the trees, so that we've got even more shadow. A little bit there as well. A little bit up the back there. Some over the front bit here. Okay, so that's done. Maybe I'll just add a little bit of the darker blue around the base there. Okay. I won't worry about the hills at the moment, I think, because I'm going to add some purple there. Okay, so I will now get some brown. Grab some, oops, that's crimson red. It's very similar on the packaging to burnt sienna. Might use a couple of browns. We'll see how we go. Just a little bit. I don't need much of the brown at all. A little bit of water, and I shall give it a wash. Swish. So it's like a strong caramel colour. Over there. Little bits of brown just in the middle there. And do the same over here. And a little bit up here. In hindsight, I should have not done as much shading with the pen on that tree trunk, just to make it a little bit lighter. That's all right. And just go over that again to make it a bit stronger. All right, I'm just going to give all that a chance to dry for a bit, and then I shall continue. The blue is now dry, so now I am ready to add some green. And I'm just thinking which brush. I'm probably safer to use the slightly smaller brush. Just add some water. Not too much. But I think what I'm going to do is add a little bit of black. Oops, that's Prussian blue. See how similar they look from a distance. Just a little bit of black. And mix it around, see what we've got. You don't want any lumps, so give it a good stir. Yep, happy with that. And now paint between the lumps of snow. You might want to leave just little dots of white here and there as well. So at this point I will do the time-lapse thing, play some music, and I'll join you after that and move on to some other colours.
All right, the green is done. And you'll notice that I did a second layer of green. So if you want to make things a bit darker, you don't necessarily have to make a darker green. You can just put on a second layer of the same green and it will be a bit darker where you place it. But you could add some extra black or brown or something, or even blue to the green to make it a bit darker if you want to as well. Now I'm going to add a bit of violet or purple for the hills. Don't need much there. And got some water. Test that out. Make sure my brush is clean. Okay, swish. I like that purple. It's nice when you get a really good purple or violet. It's nice and vibrant and not more of a maroon or burgundy. Alright, so let's try that. So I've already got blue on there. And I don't think I want to go too dark there, but we'll see what it looks like. It's nice with some little bits of blue showing through as well. And this just adds a bit more contrast because we do have a lot of blue and a lot of green and they're very similar. So it's nice to bring in another colour. Add a bit more interest there. So see how that really lifts things visually. Adds interest. Okay, so there's that. I think I'm happy with that for now. Maybe I'll just put a little depth of violet towards the bottom there as well. And I don't know if this will work, but I might just try a little bit of the violet just to bring it down a bit so that we don't just have the violet there and it's not anywhere else. It sort of ties it together a bit more. I'm happy with that. That's nice. Does it work again? Good old nice. Nice and lovely. Okay. Not a lot left to do now, but I do need to do a lamppost, and I've been sitting there for a while wondering what colour to do it. And I was thinking of doing a green. I could do it a deep blue, perhaps. But maybe I'll go with the green. I could even do violet. It really doesn't matter what colour. I could even just make it black with shades of grey. That's black. What am I wanting again? Green. I'm going to go with this is sap green, a grassy green, or a lime green, something like that, something lighter to start with. I could do red, like burgundy or something perhaps. Just think about what's going to work for your picture, what's going to give you the certain feel that you're after. All right. Water. Notice I've got two jars. One's for cleaning the brush in, the other one's for clean water, and I just keep the pipette for adding clean water down there. If you've got a lot of pipettes, you could use some to suck up different bits of paint to put in other places.
But you can just almost as easily do that with a brush. And that way you keep your pipettes nice and clean, you don't get paint stuck inside them. So just a little smidge of water there. Give it a stir, nice and vibrant. Nice lime green or something there. It's almost like liquid Kermit. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Because I'm thinking I can go and add some blue or something on it as well. But I just think it'd be nice to have something a little bit warmer in there. Be careful around those bits. Yeah, I like that. On the top as well, just watch out for the glass. Okay. So I might just add a second coat of that along the left side. And then maybe give it a chance to dry a bit while I decide if I need to add a little bit more in. I might actually use a bit of this green while I have it here, just to add a few little variations in the Christmas tree thingies. And that will also tie that colour in a bit more, so sort of balance it out. And it'll also look like the light that will come from the lamppost is falling on some places. A bit brighter than the background. And I think in the background on those trees, I might, oops, wrong jar. I might get some of my original blue. Just, excuse me, Mr. Brush. And I'm going to pop that over the blue, sorry, over the green, so that it sort of sits back a little bit more in the background, since things do get bluer further away they go. I like that. I am really just experimenting here. I didn't have a particular plan. Kind of did, but it's nice to sort of be intuitive and just try things out. Usually they work. Okay, I like those. That's nice. Whoops. I have to come up with another word that's very appealing. Maybe a bit more here. Oops, and I need to put this a little bit. I didn't see that bit there under the branch. And maybe I'll add some little little extra details here. And I might, oops, the light of the computer, it's gone and now it's back. I might just add little hints of, maybe I need to go a little darker. Little hints of blue. Bit too much there. Oops. Little hints of blue. Kind of looks like ice cream or something on top of the mountains or the hills. Yeah, I like that. A little bit more contrast in some places. To lift the snow a bit off the branches, make them pop a bit more. That's looking very deliciously icy. And probably the reason for me saying that is that it's actually a warm day in Melbourne today, lots of sunshine. And so when it's a warm day, we like to, it's nice to actually look at pictures of snow and ice and stuff and feel all refreshed. Cool. And by the way, you need, like, if you haven't done watercolour before, or you don't have any equipment at home, like this set here, I think it only cost me $10 at a department, like one of the slightly cheaper department stores in Melbourne. One that's pretty common, but it's a good brand. I like the colours. So you don't have to spend a lot if you just want to play around with things. Okay, now I'm wondering if I might just add some little bits of some ripples on the hills with the blue, just in a few places. I like that. A little bit darker over here. Just blob a little bit off. Okay, that's good. And I might get a bit more of the violet and put it down in here as well to separate the trees a bit more from the hills. So see how I'm making it a bit darker behind the trees is now making them sort of come forward a bit more. Make it a little bit darker behind the one in front. A little bit more. Okay, I like that. I think I will add a little bit more pale. Oh, no, wrong jar again. At least it wasn't in my cup of tea, which has happened in the past. Speaking of which, okay. I think I'm just going to add a little bit more of the pale blue at the top here. And then it helps it to look a bit more like the moonlight is sort of on those bits of the hills, reflecting off it. Maybe just, oops, just a little bit more blue on this side here. Like a big pile of lemon gelati, or gelato. I don't know if there's any difference really, apart from what country you're in. A bit darker over there too. Cool. Literally. And I'm going to put some blue in the footprints or hoofprints, whatever they might be. The viewer can decide on that. Good. Oh, I did want to put just a little bit more blue shadow over here, just under that tree. Tiny bit more. Go a bit darker. And obviously dab it off that little blob there. Maybe a bit more over here. Oops. Yeah, that's nice. Oops. Said it again. That's well placed and appealing. Now I might be a bit daring and get some yellow. I need it for the lantern anyway. Didn't need that much, but anyway. It's a squashed ladybug. Not too much water. No, I don't want you. No offense. My water's still fairly light, so I can't really see anything there, so I don't need to change that. But if it was looking really murky, then it'd be a good idea partway through to change it. Right, let's give it a stir. Got my lemon yellow. Maybe there was a little bit of blue there after all. It's looking slightly green. That's okay. All right, let's try just for a bit more vibrancy here. Just on the right side. I like that. Just makes it pop, stand out a bit more. Top. And going to clean water this time because I'm about finished, so I don't need to stress about making it a little bit dirty. And now bring some yellow into the lantern itself. Okay, that's makes a lovely glow there, good contrast. Maybe if I had planned really carefully, I could have left some bits of white a bit more down here, but I might just put just little specks of yellow where I've got this white because I don't want it to turn green. So see how that now looks like the light from the lantern on the lamppost is falling on the snow. And I might just, on the snow bits near the lantern, I might add just little bits of yellow too, which are quite appropriate if there's a lantern near snow, otherwise we wouldn't put yellow there, would we? It's cool, I actually wasn't intending to do that when I set out with this, but I think it looks good. It looks, time for another word, appropriate and effective and shiny. And glowy. Don't want to overdo it. Some of you might think I have already, but I'm pretty happy with that. Now I just need to decide, am I finished? A bit of yellow at the bottom of the tree trunks. Yellow down there. And I might just grab a bit of, I know that was burnt sienna, wasn't it? I'd like a bit of orange. For a moment I thought it was orange. Because it's very close. Oops, lots of clear, oily, well not oily, but stuff coming out of there. No, so just a little bit of orange. Just put here. That off a bit, that didn't quite go the shape I wanted. Maybe I'll put a little bit in there as well. And there. And little bits of orange just down on the tree trunks. So Mr. Orange is not all by himself up in the lamppost. Maybe a little bit amongst the green. See what happens with that. And just put a little bits over here as well. That's a bit of warmth. And I would like to make the tree trunks just a little bit darker. Let's grab a bit of black. I'm not afraid to use black. Some artists don't like using it at all or very much, but I'm not afraid of Mr. Black or Mrs. Black either. Even little baby black. Okay. But I do need to mix it with burnt sienna. So I've got a very deep brown. Just add a bit under tree trunks. So a bit more contrast. Don't know those bits back. And I think I'm done. Then I just need to sign it. And just looking at that little bit of branch there, I think I need to add a little bit of pen work, but I'm going to wait for that to dry so I don't ruin my pen. But that's pretty much it. I don't think I need to do anything more. I just had a little thought actually, just as you're about to rush off. I might try just going a little bit darker, just down here, just add a little bit more. Interest and contrast and separation of the different parts. And I might just dab some of that off so it's not too extreme. Don't know if that actually did anything in the end. I should technically have more of a lighter ring around there, but that's okay. Partly I wanted to disguise the bit where I did the double lines with the penwork. Okay, I think this is the point where I just need to go, okay, enough, stop. But if you happen to notice any additions in the final product, you know that actually, just as I said that, it's like, oh, please just a little bit more towards the front. And a few tabs. Fluff. And I might just make these prints a little bit darker towards the front too. Alright. I'm calling it. Can I call it? Really like that. Just a little bit more there. And now we're done. Okay. That's it. I'll sign it. I'll do that little thing and then I'll show you the finished product.
Well, here's the finished product, and you can see I have done a little bit more on my artwork, mainly just adding in the shadows down here where the moonlight is causing the shadows of the tree to fall on the snow in front. So I thought I should add them in so it's a bit more technically correct. And I'm really pleased with that. I like the depth in the artwork that's created by changing the tones along the way and the different layers and things. Also the light catching on the lamppost helps that just come forward a bit. I did also just do a little bit more work in this bit here because it looked like the lamppost was behind the tree trunk, whereas I wanted it to look like it was actually in front of the tree just a little bit, so I just did a little bit more work there. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's activity and the lesson, and I'd love to see what you produce if you have a go. You don't have to stick to the same composition, of course, but you can use the basic principles and ideas there. And yes, I hope you also have a wonderful Christmas as we remember Jesus' birth, which is ultimately why we have Christmas in the first place. Hope you have a wonderful time with family and friends, and that you also have a great start to the new year. So I look forward to churning out some more videos in the new year. And also I plan over the break to, when I'm not doing YouTube videos and online classes, I plan to be doing some pre-recorded lessons that people can pay for, probably through a platform like teachable.com. So that's my next big project. Now that I've started with YouTube, I know how to use the technology and the software and all of that. So I'm ready for the next phase of my art career. So blessings on you and your family, and I look forward to catching you again soon. And if you like this video, please remember to click the like button. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And do remember my calendars and mugs and things that are on my Zazzle store. Remember, there's a link to that in the description box. So I shall see you again soon.